The San Diego Padres looking pretty good, bouncing back, getting our hopes up yet again after 2 wins so far against the Blue Jays, recapping those games really quickly, and then discussing Joe Musgrove's comments regarding the Padres potentially being sellers, and then, of course, continuing the old deadline draft with our good buddy Miller Thomas. It's a good show today. Let's get started.
You are Locked On Padres, your daily San Diego Padres podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of Locked On Padres podcast, which is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day for, Thursday, right? Thursday, July 20th. As always, I am your host with sometimes, occasionally, but certainly not always the most, Javier Reyes. You can follow me on Twitter at Javapeno, Javiipeno, and at LO_Padres. Also, feel free to subscribe on the old YouTube. Would very much appreciate that. We passed 1,000 subscribers recently, so let's get to 2,000. I don't know. I mean, just go subscribe, though, if you want to see the video. And I will say a little programming note. Again, thank you for making us your first listen every day. We really appreciate it here over at Locked On Padres. I am no longer wearing the Jester hat if you are following on YouTube. And if you aren't following on YouTube and you don't want to anymore because you missed the Jester hat, fear not. I've gotten mixed opinions of whether or not to use it, whether or not to keep it, blah, 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 because of the clown show that's mostly taken fold. The course of this Padres season. I'm going to not wear it until the deadline. I think that's my deal. I think I'm going to keep it off, and then if they start playing poorly again, especially, we're going to see, and then I might bring it back for the deadline. Because again, I said I would take it off, when they hit 500, and I feel like I'm a man of my word. You know what I mean? Like I gotta keep it going. But anyway, guys, on today's episode, let's recap these games really quickly. Not too much craziness. I don't want to focus too much on the games. Again, we got to get into this draft with Millard. Look, Padres won 2. Really cool stuff. Last night's game, they win 2-0 thanks to a very, very overdue great start from Yu Darvish. 6 innings, 0 earned runs, 4 hits allowed, 3 walks, 7 Ks. It's good. His ERA is 4.36 on the season. He's been quietly disappointing. I don't know how to explain this, but it's I feel like we keep waiting for him to be great. And I think part of it is because it doesn't feel like he's been as atrocious because at least he's given the Padres, with the exception of that one start against the Yankees, innings. You know what I mean? But he's been pretty poor, especially considering he just got an extension. So very up and down kind of tenure overall for Yu Darvish here for the Padres, even though when he's on, he's one of the most exciting pitchers to watch. I hope that this is the beginning of something, but I also don't, I'm not sure, because he's just been so inconsistent all year, getting hit really hard, and he's older. So it's, not much to read into there. I do think the Blue Jays are a pretty potent offense, so it's still nice to see him shut them down, especially at Toronto. It's a good start. What can I say? And he was due for one, even if I'm not totally sure if this is just one of those lost seasons for Darvish. You know what I mean? I think this has arguably been his worst season with the Padres so far, because at least in the 2021 year, he was really good for the first half and was named an All-Star. And then last year, he was good the whole way through. So I think this has probably been his worst tenure with the Padres so far out of the 3 years, which is unfortunate and very Padres. But thankfully, despite the Padres only scoring 2 runs, and they scored them early, thanks to a Manny Machado single in the top of the 5th inning, they left a lot of people on base, and, it had the makings. I left a lot of people on base in square position, by the way. It had the makings of another Padres collapse, because you consider how bad the bullpen has been since that San Francisco series. It's been one of the worst in all of baseball, which has kind of canceled out the great starting pitching. But there was just a vibe. They have the bad bullpen. They aren't, putting in the killer blow, the final blow. They're not delivering on some more runs, not driving more guys in. It was basically just Manny, who's been one of the hottest hitters in baseball over the last month, or at least specifically since the start of July. So that's great. Don't get me wrong. It's great for him to be the hero in this one, basically. But again, it felt like that. But thankfully, I tweeted it out, and the reverse jinx worked, as Steven Wilson, Nick Martinez, who worked into some trouble, allowing 2 hits to start, then gets a couple of ground balls and things to go his way, and he makes it out of the inning. Hopefully he can get back to his normal self. I'm not totally confident about that, but, really good stuff from him. Trent Grisham scores a run in this game. Very cool. He walked once, struck out twice, and had a stolen base, actually. A rare steal It feels like for Trent Grisham. It feels like he should have more steals because of his speed, but hey, I can't really complain. The guy's been hitting really well over the last month, so I love to see that. He's been excellent. I don't know if it's going to keep. I'm hoping that it maybe does. You know, he does hit the ball hard, and he's looked a little bit better lately, but even still, it's just hard for me to buy into it. I want to wait a little bit longer before deciding whether or not I think Trent Grisham could be back, because I jumped on it way too fast to begin the season, thinking that I saw some things, thinking that I saw a couple things in his play approach, especially, that were like, okay, he's back, at least to a moderate degree, and then he was terrible for like a month and a half, 2 months. So waiting a little bit longer before I officially say Trent Grisham is back. But yeah, not too much else in this game. Like I said, the one hit from Manny Machado. Tatis gets 2 hits in this game and a stolen base. Ha-Seong Kim gets 2 hits and a stolen base. He is just, he's hitting 267 now. The guy has just been getting better and better, and it's just, you love to see it. And then Tatis also had 2 hits with 2 strikeouts. So shouts to the Padres getting the W. Very cool stuff. Tuesday's game, which another reason why I thought the Padres were going to collapse last night, is because they love starting off these series after a poor showing and just lighting up the other team with offense, and then they get killed, right? The Phillies series is a great example of that. Everything that happened prior to the Giants. They win this one 9-1, and it was rad. Very much appreciated from your boy. Very much. So shouts to Joe Musgrove, first of all. 6 innings, 1 earned run, only 1 walk on 5 hits, 7 Ks. He's been excellent. Him and Blake Snell amongst ERA, amongst starters over the last month, the top 5, 2 Padres. Don't you love to see it? It's great. It's only like Spencer Strider is the only one that's been a little bit better. So shouts to Joe Musgrove. Again, I was very, very confident that his early season struggles per se were just him getting into a flow, the weight room incident, all that stuff. He's back. And also, he's like not a streaky pitcher. He's a guy who is not necessarily going to have that start that just is like, boom, he's ultimately back. You know what I mean? He slowly works into it, and he's meticulous with his pitches. He has such an amazing repertoire of pitches, as I've said many times. And he was great here, again, against a pretty potent offense, and the Padres needed it. Tom Cosgrove getting some stuff done. And then my boy, my absolute new boy, Alec Jacob, his second appearance, 2 innings, 1 walk, no earned runs, 3 strikeouts. Love to see that. Always rooting for newcomers and whatnot. Should have mentioned yesterday's game. What's his face? We also had another major league player debut for the Padres, and I thought it was really interesting that, like, people brought up that his stats weren't very good in the minor leagues. Taylor Colway. And he gets 1 hit in this game, which is really nice. I enjoyed the Manny Machado moment when he did the old switcheroo to try and make it look like he gave away his first major league hit. That was really funny. The Padres are desperate, I think, in a lot of ways, and I'm totally fine with literally trying anybody. And I'm glad that the team is trying anybody. Not the best minor league stats, WRC plus below 100 in the minor leagues. He has speed and power, which is probably what just made them decide they want to bring him up. But this is mostly him starting, at least from my perspective, a thing of not because we're solely excited about Taylor, but more that we really need to fix this Matt Carpenter thing. The guy's hitting below 200. He's basically Trent Grisham without the power or the defense. You know what I mean? And by the way, when Trent Grisham was heinous, you know what I mean? That's what Matt Carpenter's been for us this season. So basically they're like, let's just try people and maybe we'll figure something out. And I'm totally a fan of that. I am a proponent of that. Maybe at the trade deadline, they might try and acquire a prospect who's somewhat ready for now in exchange for a Hader or a Blake Snell type of package. Maybe their thing is going to be, let's add some young player who can contribute now, even if he's not like a superstar prospect, who could just be okay for us, because this Matt Carpenter thing has really bit them in the butt. On top of not getting offensive production at first base, you're also not getting offensive production from the DH spot. Don't get me wrong. Last night, Tatis was DH. I'm not talking about that. I'm saying just the in general Carpenter just not getting it done for the Pods this year. Last thing, though, speaking of trade deadline that I wanted to discuss were Joe Musgrove's comments that I thought were really insightful and interesting. Joe Musgrove always has some good comments every now and then. Really feels like the kind of leader when it comes to speaking to the media, especially. I'm going to read this. This is from San Diego Union Tribune writer Kevin Acee. This is from Musgrove quotes, I don't think many guys in here have thought a whole lot about whether we're buying or selling. I feel like whether we buy or sell, we're a really good... Hold on, I'm going to bring my phone closer to me so I can read better. We're a really good team regardless. There's certain guys that aren't going to sell. And even if we do sell off, the guys that are available, Blake and Hader, that are going to be free agents at the end of the year, we have a good team in here without those guys. Obviously, we're not the same team without them, but we do have a good team. So I feel like that's not as much of a concern, and we're not really thinking about that. We're thinking about winning games one at a time and just putting as many as we can together in a row. I think some people might take that as a little bit, what's the word? Some people might view that as like unprofessional. Some people might view that as like him taking a shot at guys and saying, we can win without those guys. I don't think so. I think it was just him acknowledging and kind of being truthful. I feel like Musgrove has been fairly candid when it's speaking to the media and making comments. I think that he has been. And I think that this is the case where he looks at this and says, look, we're probably going to be selling because these guys are free agents and we've just extended so many players, and even including myself 2 years ago, right? Like, they're probably going to sell those guys and we haven't been super competitive enough. And his thing is, maybe he's looking at it saying, I don't know what a lot of Padres fans think, which is that maybe depth is the answer because you have your stars, right? Like, you have star caliber players, and their thing is we need to just tinker around the edges, and that's what might work. Baseball is not a star Avengers Assemble type of league. Like, you have to have a whole lot of depth, and I think that's what's hurt the Padres this year, where it's like Soto gets on base, but then no one's going to drive him in, right? Now, I will contend that that is a lack of depth, but it is also because superstars weren't playing to their baseball card, right? Like, Xander Bogaerts very bad this year with runners in scoring position. And in general, Juan Soto to start the year was pretty rough. Manny Machado has been rough for basically 3 months except until July. Tatis has been good. And then guys like Grisham, guys like Carpenter, guys like Jay Cronenworth, like, those guys have been bad. But I think Bogaerts and Machado both struggling is also a major, major part of this, and not just the depth. You know what I mean? There's equal parts. Or I would say it's more so depth, but I'd say it's also like let's say a 60-40 split, blaming Xander Bogaerts and Manny Machado for their slow starts and not driving guys in. Like, I saw those two grounded to way too many double plays for basically the whole season. And I think that, you know, the duo of them have more grounded into double plays than almost anybody. So, like, that's a big part of it, is that superstar players that you just gave giant contracts really, really weren't any good this year. And that's a big problem. So hopefully they can keep it going. But I think Musgrove is right on. I don't think that we should view, if they were to trade Blake Snell and Josh Hader, as the end of the world. I think it would them being honest with themselves and saying, we still like our players, we could get hot, but let's get some reinforcements and kind of retinker for next year. They're probably not trading Soto, despite all my conspiracy theories and whatnot. So I'm totally for it. I think it makes sense. And again, it's going to be fun on this podcast. I know that it's a little bit depressing how bad the team has been, but we're going to be part of the hot stove. You know what I mean? And I mean, we're always part of the hot stove, but it's like strangely interesting to see this team. And again, I'm trying to be optimistic here. It's strange that this is like the first time since I've been covering this podcast that the Padres are going to be sellers. You know what I mean? Like, this is the first time, because 2021 was a collapse. They were good by the time the trade deadline was rolling around, right? 2020, they were good, and they make the Mitch Moreland trade, the Mike Clevenger trade, unfortunately, Trevor Rosenthal trade, which worked out, right? Like, they make a lot of moves. It's the first time we've seen Preller be a seller, in theory, in a long time. And I think that there's this strange novelty curiosity that I have to see how that's going to pan out. And I bet Musgrove's probably curious too. So we'll see. I don't think they're going to necessarily completely, fire sale. I know that I've been talking about my Juan Soto conspiracy theories, but we'll have to see. We'll have to see, because again, it's in such a disappointing season that I don't think it's the notion of trading some of your star players, especially the ones that are going to be free agents. I guarantee you they aren't extending Josh Hader. I actually thought that before the season started, because I thought that's why they extended Robert Suarez. They were like, that's our closer for the future, because Hader's going to cost too much. So that's what I thought they were doing. I think that's what they're going to do. Hopefully, by the way, Robert Suarez comes back soon. But yeah, guys, trade deadline madness. It's so weird that we are going to be sellers, likely going to be sellers. It's just so weird. I haven't seen Preller be a seller in a while. And remember, he deserves a lot of criticism. I know a lot of people want him fired, but Preller has done well at selling before. You know what I mean? He got us Tatis. He's got us some good prospects. He does sell well. He rebounds. So we'll see. AJ Preller, I'm telling you, he is the Russell Westbrook of Major League Baseball. An all-star, like, super blockbuster GM that makes moves that changes the way we view the Padres, the way Westbrook's athleticism changes the NBA and how he plays, and he's so exciting to watch. Same thing for Preller, but it's not always very efficient. but and we constantly bicker and go back and forth about him. So I don't know. I kind of love Preller for just being a conversation piece, if anything. But anyway, guys, that's about it from me. We're doing some video editing magic, and we're getting back to my chat with Millard, where we're going to finish the draft, our little trade deadline draft. And then for tomorrow, looking forward to kind of doing a series preview sort of thing against the Tigers. I don't believe I'm going to be able to do a crossover with the old host of the Tigers, but I'm going to try. So we're going to see how that pans out, but look forward to that tomorrow. And until then, I will see you later, and back to the draft.
Well, we got 6 more picks here on the draft, and we're going to continue our draft in just a second. Yeah, damn. Yeah, this is a long one, but we have to have a quick word from our sponsor, Sleeper, because if you want to win 100 times your money on daily fantasy baseball, Sleeper is now offering up to 100 times payout for up to an 8-pick contest. Choose as many as 8 players you like, and also choose some of your favorite baseball stats like home runs, strikeouts, hits, and more. Get your picks right, and you can win big tonight. I'm taking Aaron. Well, I can't take Aaron Judge. He's actually hurt. But I'm going to take Vlad Guerrero Jr. I'm going to take Shohei Ohtani to hit a home run. And guess what? If they do that, I'm going to win a ton of money. Sleeper is a fantasy sports plus real money gaming app focused on bringing people together through sports and gaming. And guess what? When football season rolls around, I use Sleeper for my Dynasty Football League. It's absolutely fantastic to keep all the players saved from year to year. I think I just had a fly into my ear, so I'm sorry if I freaked out there on the YouTube on the YouTube video. But use promo code Locked On, and you'll get up to $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Currently operational in over 30 states. Check out Sleeper today. And don't forget to catch every D-backs pitch on their hometown broadcast when you download the Sirius XM app and search up either Diamondbacks or Padres on the app. Now back here with Javier Reyes of Locked On Padres. I have him kidnapped doing an hour-long plus draft today because I need the content because I am traveling this week. So, Javi, we are on pick. Let me see. I am keeping track. You just took the 10th overall pick with Marcus Stroman as your starting pitcher. That means I'm back on the board, and I am just having so much fun with how this draft is just falling to me. This is another guy who is, I believe, an impending free agent. Let me just double check. Yeah, he is an impending free agent, and I had to double check because it's another one of your favorite players off your favorite team, the San Diego Padres, and I'm taking a reliever now because this Padres team is super expensive, and you can't keep all these free agents, right, Javi? So I got to go with arguably the best closer in Major League Baseball. I just get to add him to my team and my roster on this best available trade deadline target draft. I'm adding Josh Hader, who is once again having a phenomenal season. And for Padres Nation, yeah, you traded for Hader last year, but I don't think you probably gave up a ton. You could go trade him again this trade deadline when he probably has more value than he had last year, because at this time last year, Milwaukee traded him and he had a 4.24 ERA. Well, guess what? He has a 1.03 ERA right now. He's got 22 saves, so you could actually probably get more value than what you gave up for Josh Hader at this time last season. So I'm taking him as my first reliever off the board in this draft.
Yeah, I mean, he should be the leader, the first reliever off the board. He's been excellent despite a weird Padres bullpen, that's been imploding lately. He's been pretty money, like basically borderline, like basically the entire time, right? Like he's been excellent. And yeah, I mean, I'm going to miss him, but it does make sense. And also, he was probably going to be gone after the season anyway, especially with how the Padres had loaded up and they had, gotten, what's his name? Give me a minute. I have to think. What's this guy's name? Hold on. Robert Suarez. Of the Padres, who they extended in the offseason. So that told me that they were like, okay, cool. We're definitely going to go out here and we're going to try and, be good this year, but we're also ready to move on, I think. So I think that's, it makes sense. And because they're bad, they're probably going to trade him. He's going to be one of the most coveted players probably on the entire market in general, because he fits everybody and relievers get dealt all the time at the deadline. So that's what I think is going to happen. And he's a really good player, man. I mean, he's a really good player. So I'm curious to see how exactly, like what package will the Padres get for him, because they can still get a pretty penny, and it'd be really helpful reloading and heading into next year, I think, for the Padres. So yeah, good pick, sir.
So you don't think he's resigning with the team either then?
No way. I don't see it.
No way. Dang, Josh Hader hidden free agency. And he's only going to be like 31 years old, so he's another guy they could give like a 3-year deal to once he hits free agency and pony up for like, I don't know, $60 million, something like that. All right, Javi,
Yeah.
next pick for you. Number 12 overall. Who are we going with?
Man. So with Hader gone, I kind of am of the opinion that now it's just like whatever reliever, right? Like I don't really care who I get now at reliever, just personally. So what, real quick, the wild card has to be a position player, correct?
I think the wild card could be anything. Just a person that you want to add to your team.
Okay, so if the wild card can be anybody.
Player. Anybody. Wait, you could add any. Obviously, they got to be a real trade because the DH is going to be that position player. So your wild card could be anybody. Of course, it's got to be a realistic trade deadline target. But yeah, it could be pitcher or position player for that wild card spot.
Of the wild card, let me see here. This is tough, dude. This is honestly, I think this is our toughest like trade thing yet. But I'm gonna go with another pitcher just because I don't know exactly what's going on. So with the wild card, I'm gonna go with Lucas Giolito of the White Sox. Weird pitcher, but I think it's interesting that the Dodgers have been interested in him. I think that he has room to grow. I think that he's tinkered with his mechanics and his delivery before, so why not go to a team like the Dodgers who can like show him the right way? He's got some control. His time is up with the White Sox, so I don't know. I believe that he's got a little bit of a second gear left in him. I really do, and I think that the team at the deadline, it could go poorly. We saw how poorly it went last year, but I still think Giolito has a lot of value, so I'm going to go with him.
Yeah, Giolito is really good. He's having a really strong season. He was actually going to be my next pick from my wild card as well, just because, yeah, we're kind of stepping on each other's toes here a little bit. I mean, he's got the sub-3.5 ERA. He's been a really strong starter, mid-rotation guy for the last few years in the Chicago White Sox. I think he's just that perfect guy. If you're a team like the D-backs, you just need one more starter behind a Zach Gallen and a Merrill Kelly. Put a Giolito as your number 3, who is like 28 years old, perfectly fits the timeline with a nice young team on the rise. I think a Giolito could fit the needs of a lot of teams. So I love that pick for your wild card. Kind of stole my wild card pick a little bit right there. So next I could either go, I only have 2 picks left, DH and wild card. So the 2 really, spots on my team that could be filled with anyone. I think I'm going to go with wild card here as well. Spiritually, since we didn't take really any superstars in this draft, I'm not going to take Dylan Cease as one of the White Sox starting pitchers because I do think he's probably a trade deadline target, but he's also like a true tier 1 pitcher, even though he's having a little bit of a down year. I think if you were to trade Dylan Cease, you're still expecting like a King's ransom back. So I don't know what the likelihood that he gets moved this deadline just because his price tag might be too expensive in a trade. I think someone like Giolito's a more realistic target. So I'm not even going to take a Dylan Cease in this draft. I'm going to go with a real guy here who I think should have been the all-star representative for his team. Instead, they chose the worst starting pitcher in Michael Lorenzen. But I'm going with Eduardo Rodriguez in my wild card spot. E-Rod, who has had a nice little comeback after dealing with some heart issues from COVID complications and just haven't really been in the limelight. He's kind of had an up and down career. He's had some good seasons with Boston. He's been all right with Detroit. But this year with Detroit, he's looked really good. I think he's had an all-star level season, even though he didn't make it to the all-star team. I think he should have been the Tigers representative. But he's got a sub-3 ERA. He's got almost double-digit strikeouts per 9. He's got almost below a 1 whip. I just think overall, E-Rod has had a really strong season, and he's just another one of those guys like a Giolito. If you can add him and he's your number 3 starter in your rotation as the lefty, I think you feel really good as a playoff team.
Yeah. I mean, Eduardo has been really good before. He got really unlucky 2 years ago, back when he was with the Red Sox. Just all the expected stuff was really rough for him, but he's, bouncing back slowly. And he was going through it. I mean, he had some off the field issues last year that kind of prevented him from being, on the team in a lot of ways. Like we barely even saw him last year. So again, pretty solid though. I like it. I really do. I think that he could be one of those sneaky great pickups, I think, at the deadline, and I'm curious to see what happens with him. But it pales in comparison to my next pick. My next pick.
Who is it? Second
from the team that is having the fire sale, or at least I think we agree that out of all the teams in the sport, if there is a team that has a fire sale, it looks like it's going to be this one, and that's the St. Louis Cardinals. I'm going to go with a guy who's been lightly linked to the Yankees lately, and that's Dylan Carlson. Okay. I think that it's tough to say whether or not they will definitively trade this guy. He's still only 24. He's still only 24, and that's the problem, is that a player like, I mean, it's more likely that they would trade Tyler O'Neill in theory, but he's also a lot older. Or is he? I don't even know. How old is Tyler O'Neill? 1 second, please. Let's see here. He's 28.
I got
okay,
you
so
right
he is older. Okay. He's 28. But look, Dylan Carlson, he's got a good walk rate. 243 batting average, 350 on base. He is working on the slugging and stuff. Only a 107 WRC plus, but I think he's super young, and I do like that he was linked to the Yankees. And if that's the case, they might give up a decent amount for him, bring in a young, controllable asset, and the Yankees are just not about acquiring superstars these days because they are pulling a similar strategy to the Red Sox, pretending they're poor. So I'm going to go with him. I know that sounds a little bit icky and weird. It feels like it's one of those reports that's like, okay, yeah, sure. We always get like a yeah, sure kind of guy. I think Nolan Arenado is another one where it was like, yeah, okay, whatever. Someone needed to rack up some engagement today. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's kind of what happened there. But hopefully with Dylan Carlson, maybe they're thinking we need to, what's the word? Reset totally the Cardinals, and they're going to try and trade Dylan Carlson and get a lot. So,
yeah, and we saw these two teams last year make a trade with the Jordan Montgomery, Harrison Bader, little trade deadline acquisitions. So we've seen these two teams be trade partners before. I think the whole Cardinals experience, like, they have a lot of young talent who's like solid, but I don't know if we feel like any of their young talent's going to pop into stars. Like, they got the Gormans, the Brendan Donovans, they got Dylan Carlson's. Like, they got so many dudes who are between like 22 and 28 years old, but I don't know how many of them you're like, these are true foundational building blocks. These are guys who we can build our franchise around. A lot of them feel like nice, supplemental, complementary pieces, but I don't know if the Donovans and Nolan Gormans are going to be the guys that bring you into the next generation of great St. Louis Cardinals baseball. Like, they're probably the perfect pieces to have surrounding your Goldschmidt and Nolan Arenados. But if you were to trade the Arenados and Goldschmidts of the world, I don't know if you could build around the team with the other young players that this team currently has. So I'm very curious to see how the Cardinals attack the next couple weeks as we approach the trade deadline. So Dylan Carlson, and that was outfielder for you? They took him?
Yeah.
Okay, outfielder. So this is going to be my last pick of the draft. Number 15th overall, and I already know who I'm going with because I got to go with a DH here, and I'm picking a guy from a team that's in last place, even though they got the championship or bust mentality. This team is absolutely terrible, the Colorado Rockies. I'm taking a little Randall Grichuk. I don't know if I pronounced his last name right. He's just another one of those guys who's not going to be sexy when you see his name come across the ticker, but he's batting 300. He's got over 800 OPS. Hasn't really shown the pop this year, only 5 home runs in 55 games. But if you look at his time from 2016 to like 2019, 24 home runs, 22 home runs, 25, 31 home runs. Back in 2021, had 22 home runs. So this is a guy with multiple seasons above 20 home runs, despite the power output not being there this season. And the fact he is in Coors Field probably makes you a little bit concerned with the power output this year. But I think this is someone that still swing a super sweet bat, can just be a stabilizing force, and maybe a change of scenery will lead to a little bit more power output for the rest of the year. So I think Randall Grichuk could just be another one of those Soler types who just come in and can make a real difference for you, probably in like that number 6 or 7 spot in your lineup.
Yeah, it makes sense. I believe he was linked to the Yankees as well recently. So this is Grichuk, right?
Yeah, Grichuk.
Yeah, I think he was linked to the Yankees. He's probably the likelier one that gets traded because it's possible that the Cardinals, now that I'm thinking about it, like they reportedly didn't want to trade. It was either him or Jordan Walker in the Juan Soto sweepstakes last year. So maybe they still believe in him a lot. I don't know. It depends. One of those guys is going to go. I just don't know who because they have too many outfielders, I think, with the Tyler O'Neill potentially coming back. So yeah, makes sense, man. Good pick. I don't have much else to add either.
Thanks. Yeah. I don't think there's too much to add on Randal Grichuk. How you gonna wrap us up here, though? Last pick of the draft.
Last pick of the draft. It's my relief pitcher. I think that I could be weird and pick someone like Adbert Alzolay. Maybe he's someone that starts picking up steam, but he's got a good strikeout rate for the Cubs, and he's a reliever. So bottom line, he could be moved. But I'm going to go with guys who I feel like we know more likely are getting moved, and I'm going to go with Jordan Hicks again of the St. Louis Cardinals, just because they're probably having a fire sale. It's very likely that he gets moved, and I have to keep that in mind. Scott Barlow and Justin Lawrence are two other guys. Young Rockies pitcher, relief pitcher, and then Scott Barlow, who's been very good for a few years now for the Royals. Not as much this year, so maybe that's why he won't get moved. But Jordan Hicks, reading from Bleacher Report, he's got a triple-digit sinker and a slider that's generated a 55.8% whiff rate. That's really cool, and something tells me he's definitely getting traded because they have put him in the closer's role lately, partially because Ryan Helsley's been hurt. He was their all-star closer last year. But that tells me, they want to get him some closer experience to show teams that he can do it. Conspiracy Javi, maybe, that he can be a closer, a frontline guy. He's been good before, and I think that he gets moved. So I'm going with Jordan Hicks out of the bullpen. Not as impressive as your guy, but nonetheless, I think he'd be pretty effective, and it's going to get moved.
Wow, Jordan Hicks, wrapping up the draft. I had him definitely as my number 2 closer reliever for this little exercise that we did today. So I'm not mad at all for you. So just to recap the draft, number 1 to me was Cody Bellinger as my corner infielder. Number 2 to you, corner infielder Candelario. Then I took outfielder number 3. You took outfielder McCutchen number 4. I took Duvall, outfielder number 5. You took Rooker, DH number 6. I took Brandon Drury, number 7, as my middle infielder. You got Tim Anderson, number 8, middle infielder. Then I took Blake Snell as the first pitcher off the board. You took Stroman, number 10. I took Hader, number 11. You took Giolito as your wild card, number 12. I took Erod as my wild card, number 13. Then you got Dylan Carlson, outfielder, 14. I took Grichuk as my DH, 15. And then you got Jordan Hicks as your closer to round it out. Any final honorable mentions or guys that we didn't talk about today they want to just spend a couple minutes on? Because I just had a couple of dudes down. Like when I looked at the Giants team, they had some players that I didn't know if they were really going to be considered trade deadline targets, because you look at some of the lists like on Bleacher Report, like CBS Sports, like a Jock Peterson or JD Davis. Like the Giants are now ahead of the D-backs in the NOS standing. So I don't know if they're going to just start selling off some of the pieces on their team. But a team like the St. Louis Cardinals, a Jordan Montgomery, a Paul DeJong, I think those are a couple more names to keep an eye on as we approach this trade deadline.
Yeah, for sure. And then some of the relievers that I mentioned, and again, it's possible that a guy like Soto, at least even if it's a small chance that maybe the Padres fully commit to selling and blow it up, totally possible. And there's probably some other guys that we don't even know about. And then, of course, Ohtani, who we barred from this draft, likely because Miller didn't want to take a chance that if he lost the coin toss that I would pick him and automatically win the draft. That's possible. He probably had some nefarious motives behind the scenes, but nonetheless, that is it. And sir, this is a pretty in-depth draft. I'm really curious to see how the deadline goes, man. I think it might surprise people. I thought it was going to be light, but I actually think it might surprise people. We might have some fun stuff. So looking forward to it.
Yeah. And the best player that we didn't talk about that could potentially get moved, because I want to see what the New York Mets do. Maybe Max Scherzer, just because we've seen his name floated around a bunch. I know we were looking at that Talking Baseball trade draft, and they had Scherzer to the D-backs. I think I've even seen Chris Rose do that too, because that would just be fun. Scherzer started his career with Arizona, one of the worst trades of all time to trade away, arguably the best pitcher of our generation. Like the fact that the D-backs traded that man away, it's just absolutely terrible. So let's bring him back age 45 when he's having the worst season of his career to really help his D-backs make their deep postseason run. Javier Reyes, I've had him on the pod now for an hour and 10 minutes. I'm sure my man is ready to get off. I'm sure he's done talking. He's like, I'm not doing a pod for the rest of the week. But Javi, the listeners need to know, where can they find you online and where can they listen to you?
Find me at LO_Padres or at Javapeno for my personal account. And of course, subscribe to the YouTube. Just cracked 1,000 subs. So please do that. And then until next time, man, everybody just stay faithful. That's just what you got to do. You got to stay faithful.
Yeah, stay faithful. Snell and Hater to the D-backs. Let's make it happen. At Creator Thomas 24 for the personal account on Twitter, or look up Locked On Diamondbacks Twitter, Instagram for the podcast handle. And of course, check out our YouTube channels, Locked On Diamondbacks, Locked On Padres on YouTube. And please hit that subscribe button. Another week, another draft, another crossover with Javier Reyes of Locked On Padres. Until next week, sir.